I don't think I'm allowed to say that I'm idealist, nor can I say I'm physicalist. The meaning that we experience, right? The meaning that I feel like I know and that is disclosed to me, to use Heidegger's term, when I think about things, that is, even under a physicalist view, appearing in my conscious experience. Now we can make sense of our conscious experience through the physical world, and that's what we do. But that very notion of the physical world affecting our conscious experience then necessitates an idea that there is no such thing as some external absolute truth, because each person's biological basis is different. So that would affect different experiences, conscious experiences. Yeah, so the question is, why do we know that the physical world is true? And it comes down to our conviction of the meaning that appears to us. Like, my understanding of the physical world is learned, it's internalized, it was conditioned. And so could say like, oh, if that's just what's happening, then why should I prioritize that over this idea that, hey, the only thing that I know to be true is consciousness, which is another fact that I say is completely culturally contingent. So we have these different concepts that are appearing to us in our minds. How do we prioritize one over the other? And really the argument I make is that given my current conceptual understanding, the heuristic that I can follow that allows me to make sense of what is true in some practical way, like something that I can benefit from believing, and something that will benefit me as I experience and exist in the world, is specifically the heuristics of empirical science and logic. And that doesn't mean the physical world, right? Like, that means the methods that have led us to the notion of the physical world that we arrive at. But those methods also dictate that if we find out something else about quantum physics or whatnot, that needs to affect our notion or our understanding of the physical world. But it's really the methodology that is paramount. It's the idea of how you get to a truth that you know is reliable. And it's kind of the story I try to keep saying. It's a weird story to say because it's not actually physicalist, because we're not purporting the physical world to be the source of ontology. We're recognizing that the source of ontology, as we intuit it, like what we experience as meaning, outside of experience and consciousness, meaning is like unintelligible. So yeah, we have to recognize that meaning is coming from our thoughts, but we can't also think that just because the source of ontology is consciousness, that creates what we believe to be the physical world. Like, we can have a conceptual understanding about something, and that thing that we're having the conceptual understanding about isn't necessarily true in some absolute sense. But we all have some understanding of the physical world that is culturally contingent. We learned it in school and whatnot, and that leads us to have pragmatically similar understandings about the physical world. And our understandings might lead us to consider that empirical science is effective. Yeah, that it challenges what being right means in these types of ideas, and it really makes us consider what we're actually trying to do. Like, what are we looking for in our conceptualization of the world and ourself and our understanding and whatnot. So really what I'm trying to point out is that in our views, like in our consciousness, in our experience, we're just dealing with these feelings. We're dealing this feeling of conceptual, objective things, right? Like I'm just dealing with this conceptual understanding of a pen. I'm dealing with the meaning that allows me to think about the sun. And we can talk about meaning as both something as explicit that we can reflect on explicitly, but also meaning needs to be discussed in this unconscious, acted out way. You could consider that part of my understanding about this pen is such that when I stop paying attention to it and I start writing something down, I must understand something about the pen that is unconscious in my activity of writing. So yeah, we just have these concepts, but these concepts aren't the thing themselves. And the idea of the thing itself being separate from the concept is also unintelligible. That's what Brandom pointed out, leveraging Hegel's phenomenology of spirit. Yeah, the idea that there's this gap between the thing in itself as some external objective thing in the world and our subjective perception is unintelligible. And I mean, they get there or Brandom gets theirs gets there in some rational, logical way. But I try to point out that objectivity is felt. So we can always ground this stuff in the biological processes that are happening when we think about things. So that's why I always say, like, when I see this as a pen, my understanding that this pen is a pen, it's right here, it's objectively here, this is objectively a pen. Like, that is afforded to me, that feeling in the moment is afforded to me by all the processes going in my brain, and a significant aspect of those processes are affective. So it makes me feel like those are true in some objective sense. But really what's happening is just I'm feeling that it's true. And there's a lot of things that I feel to be true that end up not being true. And that points out to me that just because something feels to be true isn't the heuristic that has like ultimate authority. So how do we navigate the world when we know that things can turn out to be not the way that we think they are? And we know a lot about the experience of learning that something isn't the way that you thought it was. So I suggest maybe we should pay attention to that type of experience. When our brain tells us that maybe what we think is not right, then maybe we should expect and pay attention to that. Something to consider. Okay, I'm guessing that you're saying that I'm actually very idealist, and it does sound very idealist, but I don't think I'm allowed to say I'm idealist. So really what I say that I am is some sort of pragmatist, because when you think about concepts in these ways, what it really boils down to is linguistic practices. So like what we're trying to communicate. And when I communicate something, everyone's going to infer something differently because they each have their own biology that's processing their own conscious experience and whatnot. So everyone's going to have their own subjective understanding of what I'm conveying. So I have to be precise to try to make it so that what they get is pragmatically similar to what I'm trying to say. And we can consider what that means. Like we have pragmatically similar enough understandings of this thing as a pen such that when I say it's a pen, it doesn't affect any prediction error for you. Like it doesn't affect any negative emotion for you. Now, if I were to say like, hey, like this is a penguin, imagine everyone in chat was like, yeah, that's a penguin. Like you might think you're going crazy. Like your brain is gonna make that stand out. It's gonna maybe give you some cognitive dissonance. It's gonna make you feel weird. But our brain doesn't do that when what happens is what we expect. But the pen exists independently of you. So my understanding of this pen is that it exists independently of me. Like it's like non-psychological in that sense, in that my understanding of it is such that a property of it is that it would exist independently of me. But once again, like this idea that it exists independently of us is only being accessed by either my or your thinking about it. Without the thinking about it, there's the concept is gone. Like there's no concept. The concept is thought of. Like that's really the point here. But that doesn't mean that the pen doesn't exist independently. Like just the idea of like the pen existing independently of us is only something that it can be felt and communicated. It's not something that means anything outside of our experiences of it. It wouldn't be appropriate to say that it has some objective transcendent status. Now I'm just talking about like philosophically bedrock, like metaphysics bedrock. I'm not trying to make a case about how we should speak about things in certain fields. Granted, if I'm in the science, I say this all the time, if I'm in the science department, I'm not going to act like our understanding of the pen is contingent on our experience. I'm going to say that this is a pen, and that's true, right? But really, when we get down to the very bedrock of experience, truth is something that's felt in the moment differently by each person. And not only that, it's dynamic. It's changing every second. We just looked at a neuroplasticity. There are changes in your brain happening at every second. And we also discussed that memory and also just pattern recognition is reconstructive. It's your brain trying to reactivate the parts of the brain that occurred during the initial activation. So as imagine that your brain's trying to reactivate those connections, and those connections are changing. Thus, the experience that you have as a product of those activations would be slightly different over time. But certain aspects of that experience are so internalized that when I look at this pen, even though parts of my brain are changing right now as it relates to this pen, it still feels like a pen over time. If you're really interested in this stuff, part 1 is pretty sweet. We talk about all this stuff in a way that I think makes sense. And it really, really is grounded in the science. Like I'm not trying to do anything without the science. The science is keeping us grounded. I'm getting to this position out of what the science is telling us. At least that's what I believe. What do idealists believe? Like, I don't think I check all the boxes, because idealists believe that there's like some sort of, or you know what I would say? It's that the definition of idealism is too ambiguous. So like that, this is the pragmatist side of me. Like we have to be mindful about the definitions, how precise they are. And I think there's ambiguities in this definition that I can't ascribe to. Like I'm not allowed to. I try to think about these things as a normative pragmatism. Okay, while materialists believe the universe is made of physical matter, idealists believe reality is fundamentally mental, spirit, or spiritual or immaterial. So the idea that reality is a thing, though, that's being created by the mental is where we're getting ambiguities, because you know, you could get to like the people like the analytic idealists who like literally believe that like aspects of the world are being created by the mental, and that's something I don't abide with. We're just like, when I say a concept of a pen, what I'm referring to are specifically the activations in your brain when you're thinking about the pen, and the activations in your brain when you're using the pen as a tool and you're not thinking explicitly about the pen, right? So like the idea that there is something external to us in the universe is only something felt in the individual via the mental processes, and that's what allows to ground us and have this type of idea. But yeah, so we're not going to make a case about what's primary or secondary unless we're talking about like ontology. That's why I say when I say that consciousness is the source of ontology, I'm specifically referring to this notion of meaning, right? Like this is only something that we can intuit in our conscious experience. There's without humans in the world, imagine humans never came to be, like there is no like meaning felt. And so I guess there's the presupposition that meaning is something that can be felt. But if you were to say that there is meaning there, I would just remind you that it requires you to think right now for there to be meaning there. In the sense that, like, I would say, like, yeah, the matter would all be there. The energy would all be there. In theory, like, materially, like, that's our understanding of the physical universe. Like, the physical parts of it would be there. But, like, any of these patterns, like the idea that energy is separate from the material, the fact that there are planets, and that, you know, like, the fact that we're going to categorize anything is something that we're just doing now. Many idealists argue that what we call the physical world is actually a collection of ideas. So yeah, just because we have a concept of the physical world, this is the tricky part. It's like, paradoxically, our concept of the physical world is such that it isn't originated by our ideas. It's just that the concept is. That's why we have to disconnect concepts from what the concepts are about. But once again, when we're doing that, we're not trying to actually make a gap where there's like something that is true and then something that's just experience. It's just all there is the experience of things being true, and that's a felt experience. Yeah, I think once again, it's just down to like the wording of idealism. I just don't feel comfortable identifying with idealism because of the implications that people will infer from that. And so while I'm trying to be more careful about what I'm trying to say, I prescribe more safely with normative pragmatism of some sort, where I'm trying to be mindful of the words, because I'm just trying to communicate something. Like, that's really all that's going on here. The idea that there is some like metaphysical right answer is also, I would say, similarly misguided. So, I'm just trying to communicate something that allows us to make sense of the world and our position in it. When we talk about truth, I see that most salient as a felt quality of the moment you're in, and that moment changes, So even though the moment, it might feel like you're in the same moment from moment to moment, there's differences about those moments that are affecting your experience of the world and also what you think. And that's where like these embodied discussions come into play. Like we often think about rational as operating in this space that's external to ourselves and our bodies. But really what's happening is processes in our mind. What do we have here? Is this another thumbnail? Oh, here we go. Oh my gosh. Very nice. If someone doesn't value evidence, is this an actual quote? I know this isn't an actual picture, but is this an actual quote? If someone doesn't value evidence, what evidence are you going to provide that proves that they should value evidence? If someone doesn't value logic, what logical argument would you invoke to prove they should value logic? These are good questions. It's pointing out that if you don't agree on the heuristic of what leads to the right answer, then we're at like a fundamental impasse. That's the real danger of like giving up on science and the empirical method and logic itself.